good morning, and welcome all of you to this session on mind over money. This is a session which is related to behavioral finance. And if you look at behavioral finance, this is a recent topic as far as India is concerned. It's only the last few years that people have started talking about it. But internationally, this is a very discussed topic, that distributors and advisors have with their investors. Quickly tell me, if I give you an option of giving you 100 rupees now versus 101 rupee after 1 week, which one will you choose? So I will not disclose what is the right answer as of now. Perhaps by the end of the session, you would also realize what should ideally be the right choice. Okay, great. So let me go ahead and let me briefly tell you what is the objective of the session today. We will understand how our mind works. And obviously, when we talk about mind, it is also to do with behavior. So how do we take decisions? At the same time, we will understand our own investment patterns, investment behaviors. And I will introduce you to a couple of biases. And going through the biases, we will also understand, as an investor, how can we sort of come out of these biases. Okay, so let me start with the story of two investors. This is a real life incident that has happened in the United States. The first story is about a lady by the name of Grace Groner. Now let me give you some brief about this lady. This lady became an orphan at the age of 12, which means she lost both her parents. Now, if you can imagine that somebody loses their parent at the age of 12, the biggest impact and the immediate impact happens on the education. And that is what happened with this lady. With a lot of difficulty, she managed to clear a 10th standard. And obviously, there was nobody in the family to support. So she started hunting for the job. At the age of 18, she got a job with a company called as Abbott Laboratories. And she joined this company as a stenographer. So today we don't have these designation of stenographer. They are called as personal secretary today. So she joined this company as a stenographer, worked for the next 42 years in the same position, and retired at her age of 60. Perhaps she was interested in cricket, and she went on to live for 100 years. She hit a century in her life, which means she survived 40 years after the retirement. Now, till the time she was alive, nobody knew about this lady. But after she died, she became a sensation. Now, the reason she became a sensation was she had left behind $7 million as charity for the school. Now, please understand, this lady did not have money to continue her studies. And she realized that for education, money is important. But she did not have it. And therefore decided that whatever money she is accumulating, she will leave it behind for poor children to take education. So when she gave this charity, this became a news. Now the question is, how did this lady manage to get $7 million? Now typically when you analyze who are the people who have got wealth, one, it could be people who are into business and they have a very successful business. Perhaps they might be having a lot of money. Two, it could be by virtue of inheritance. So the family was rich, and therefore by default, the money also comes to them. Three is people who are highly qualified, highly educated. They're working in big organizations in very good positions. So these are the people whom we normally associate with money. But none of these was applicable for this lady, and therefore it continued to intrigue a lot of people as to how she managed to get this money. After a lot of investigation, it was found that this lady did a very, very simple thing in her life. And the simple thing was, when she was 23 years of age, she purchased only 3 shares of Abbott Limited, the company in which she was working. Only 3 shares. But the good thing is, she did not sell these shares for the next 75 years. Mind you, 75 years is 3/4 of a century. It's a huge period of time, And that is the reason this money got translated into $7 million. A lot of bonuses came, splits happened in the stock, but she never took out a single penny from this. And that resulted in so much of wealth getting created. So you might wonder, what is so great about this? So everybody knows that compounding happens, and if you stay long, you get wealth. Yes, but the challenge is, a lot of us know the fact that equity gives us good returns. We can create wealth in the long term with equity. But the problem is, and the challenge is, that are we willing to stay for such a long period of time? I always say this: investing in equity is very simple, but maintaining the investments in equity is very difficult. And this lady demonstrated that behavior to stay invested for such a long period of time. Please remember, 75 years is not a joke, right? So that is what this behavior resulted in huge amount of wealth. After she died, few weeks later, another news came in the US. And this news was about a gentleman by the name of Richard Fusco. Now let me give you some basic input about Richard Fusco. Richard Fusco did his MBA from the University of Chicago, which was a very reputed university. And after doing his MBA, he landed in a job with a company called as Merrill Lynch, which is an investment banking firm. And his career was so great that in a very short span of time, he went on to become the vice chairman of Merrill Lynch. So fast was his growth that in a very short period of time, he went on to a very top position. At the same time, he was also regularly featuring on business channels. He used to come and talk about investments, finance to investors. So he was considered an expert in the US, okay, as far as investments are concerned. He was so successful in his career that he decided to take his retirement at the age of 40. Just imagine working only for 15, 16 years and taking a retirement. He had accumulated enough wealth, which he felt would take him through his life, till the end of his life. But fate had something else in store for them. Few years after his retirement, he became bankrupt. I repeat, few years after retirement, he became bankrupt, which means he had no money to even sustain his own life. And this became a news. Why? Because Richard Fusco was an expert in finance. He knew everything about investments. He used to go and talk about investments to people and investors. And here there was a gentleman who used to talk about investments to others, but he himself did not have the money to take care of his life. And this, why did he become bankrupt? Most of his investments were into real estate. And all of you would agree that real estate is an illiquid asset. And the kind of real estate he used to buy is not the kind of real estate that you and I buy. So we buy real estate and properties which are, say, 1,000 square feet, maybe 1,500 square feet. But this guy used to buy huge palatial mansions. In fact, if you look at the photograph, you can see some white images, white structures behind him. These are the kind of huge mansions that he used to live in. Maintenance is a big issue. EMI servicing is a big challenge. And all this led to his downfall. And finally, he became bankrupt. Now, if you look at this, both these stories are very contradictory to each other. On one hand, we have seen a lady who does not know anything about investments, but she is able to amass a lot of wealth. And on the other hand, we have a highly qualified professional who knew everything about investments, but did not have enough money. So what this story tells us is that investing is not the study of finance. If that would have been the case, the only people who would be rich in this world are the people who are finance professors, because they know everything about finance, right? But that is not the case. So investing is the study of how people behave with money, and that's very important. Behavior is very hard to teach, right? Now, we will try and understand in today's session, when you make investments, there are certain things that keep happening inside us, and those tend to influence and impact our decisions. Okay, so this is the context that I want to set for today. Behavior is very, very critical. Qualification, position does not matter. At the end of the day, it is people who will demonstrate the right behavior will be the ones who will be able to create wealth. Okay, I'm not saying that people who are qualified will not earn a lot of money. You may earn a lot of money. So professionals, people who are working in big organizations, in big positions will earn a lot of money. There's no question about it. But whether they will create wealth is a question mark. Wealth will be created only by those people who will demonstrate the right behavior in their investment journey. Now, let me come to a very interesting topic here now. All of us know that equity is the best performing asset class. And over the period of time, equity will help us to create a financial wealth. It will help us to achieve our financial goals. And if you look at investing in equity, I said it's very simple. Okay. So the typical behavior that we expect from people is that you should come to the equity markets when the markets are low, and you should try and exit when the market is high. Okay, fairly simple. Doing it practically is very challenging. And for you to do this, you have to spend enough time in the market. Okay, now this is what we expect. Let us see what happens practically. What we have found, and data suggests that 98% of prospective individuals or investors come to equities and equity mutual funds when the market is at a high level. So market is already reached at a high level is when people start coming to mutual funds. Let me give a very simple example. March 2020, we had the COVID episode, the start of the COVID episode in India. The market started to fall. I don't think anybody of us would have gone to Mr. Ramalingam and said that, sir, I want to start a SIP now because markets have come down by 30%. I want to start. I don't think anybody would have done this. But I am sure a lot of you would have contacted Mr. Ramalingam in the last 1 month because we have seen markets have already reached 40,000, 42,000. It's already at a peak level. Everybody is talking positive. Then you also want to get into this market. And this is what typically happens. People come when the market is at a high level. That is also okay. But the problem is after a few months of you entering the market, if the markets were to correct and you see a loss in your portfolio, suddenly there is fear inside you. And you feel that I should come out of this investment. So what are you doing in practice? You're entering when the market is high. You're exiting when the market is low. And you keep on repeating this, which means you keep on entering, keep on exiting, keep on entering, keep on exiting. Where have you given the time for the market to deliver? And when you do this, you will find that you don't get the returns that the market has delivered. So in India, equity markets have delivered, if I look at Sensex returns, last 40 years, the average annual return is about 16-17%. But if you ask me how many investors have actually got it in India, it's a pathetic single-digit number. So single-digit percentage of individuals actually earn that kind of returns. And the market is not to be blamed. It is the behavior of the investor that is to be blamed. And this cycle of entering at high levels, exiting at lower levels, and again entering, again exiting is what brings this downfall. And this is what we call as the behavior gap. What is this behavior gap? Equity has delivered 16% returns, but I as an investor has not got that 16%. I may have got 10%, 8%. That gap is what we call as the behavior gap. And you can imagine if you are investing for 15, 20 years, a gap of 5-6% per annum can compound and become a huge amount after the long period of time. And that is how important and critical behavior is. And I repeat again, very important parameter as far as wealth creation is concerned. Okay. All right. Let's look at few more behaviors that happen. Okay. Now, many a times what we have seen is that investors, when they come to equity mutual funds, okay, especially through the form of SIPs, they come with a long-term view. So, for example, let us take a hypothetical situation that Mr. Vasant Kumar is the client, okay, and Mr. Ramalingam has gone to meet his client or vice versa. And Mr. Ramalingam has suggested that you should make this investment for 15-20 years. So there are certain goals that you have after 15-20 years. So you should link this investment to your goal, which is for 15-20 years. Okay. So Mr. Vasant Kumar says, okay, I will start my SIP for 15 years. But after he starts the SIP for 15 years, after 6 months or 1 year, he finds that the market has fallen. So he had invested, let us assume, say, 10,000 rupees every month. So 1 year has passed. So in that 1 year, he's invested 1,20,000. But at the end of 1 year, that 1,20,000 has become 1,10,000. So there's a loss of 10,000. Now, what does Mr. Vasant Kumar do now? He had initially come with the objective of staying invested for 15 years. But after seeing the performance of 1 year, there's some panic that comes in. Okay. And suddenly, Mr. Vasant Kumar calls up Mr. Ramlingam and says, sir, I want to stop the SIP. Why? There's an emergency at home. So the SIP gets stopped. Okay. Okay. So let me continue where I was. So Mr. Vasant Kumar calls up Mr. Ramlingam and says that I want to stop the SIP. Okay. So the reason is emergency. Now, what is the reason? Let us understand. And for that, let me illustrate using the example of football. Now, you must have seen that in a football match, there are two teams that play the match, and they play this match for about 1.5 hours. And after 1.5 hours of match, when there is no result, the match goes into extra time. And after the extra time also, when there is no result in the match goes into the penalty shootout. And in this penalty shootout, 5 players from both the teams are given the chance to hit the ball inside the goal. And the goalkeeper of the opposite team will obviously try and block it. Now let us understand what happens, because the penalty shootout is going to decide the fate of the match, and the goalkeeper is a very important element in this penalty shootout. The coach of the football team gives some instruction to the goalkeeper. Let us understand what are those instructions that are given. The goalkeeper is told that historically it has been observed that the striker, 39% of the time, the striker hits the ball to the left of the goalkeeper. 32% of the time, the ball is hit to the right of the goalkeeper. And about 29% of the time, the ball is hit straight. Okay, this is historical data of penalty shootouts. And the coach tells the goalkeeper, listen, goalkeeper, this 39 and 32% is difficult. Why? Because the speed at which the ball is going to come to you, it is impossible for you to judge whether it is going to come to your left or it's going to come to your right. And therefore, you ignore this 71% to focus on the 29% where the ball is going to come straight. If the ball is going to come straight, it is very easy to tackle it. You just stand in the center of the goal post, do nothing. Just stand there. Ball is coming straight to you. Just deflect it. Simple. Just block it. And if you block 29% of the shots, our team will win the match. Very simple strategy. Now let us see. So I was saying that, so you block 9% of the shots and our team will easily win the match. Very simple strategy which is told to the goalkeeper. And the goalkeeper nods his head. Okay, yes sir, I will do this. Don't worry, I will do exactly as you have told me. Now the goalkeeper comes to the stadium. And let us see what he does. You will be surprised to see that only 6% of the time, the goalkeeper is standing in the center, and 94% of the time he is doing that circus of left and right, which he was told not to do. Getting it? What do you think is the reason why the goalkeeper changed his mind? Why did the goalkeeper change his behavior? What happened in this 10-15 minutes that suddenly the goalkeeper changes his decision? Now let us understand this. Many of you are right in this. So let's visualize this. The goalkeeper comes to the stadium and he looks inside the stadium. There are 10,000 spectators who are watching this match, and everybody is going to focus on what the goalkeeper is going to do. Apart from there are lakhs and millions of spectators who are sitting at home watching the match on television, and everybody is keen on wanting to know what the goalkeeper is going to do. So if everybody's attention is on the goalkeeper thinks, if I do what the coach has told, and what has the coach told? That you stand in the center, do nothing, just block the ones which are coming straight. If I do that, and the ball goes to my left, and the ball goes to my right, and it goes inside the goal post, all these people who are watching me will be able to see that the goalkeeper is doing nothing. He is doing nothing, and perhaps some of them will also get the feeling that the goalkeeper has perhaps accepted some money to lose the match. He has taken some bribe. And if this is the thought that comes into spectators' mind, you can imagine they will not allow me to go out of the stadium after the match is over. So he says, forget what the coach has told me. Forget what Mr. Ramalingam has told me. I will do what I want. And he says that I will keep jumping left and right. If the ball gets stuck to my hand, it is okay. Even if it does not get stuck to my hand, it is okay, because people who are watching me will at least get the sense and feeling that the goalkeeper has put all his efforts. He was perhaps unlucky that he could not tackle any of these balls. And this is exactly what happens. So the fear, the pressure of the situation, the pressure of the spectators forces the goalkeeper to change his behavior. And the same happens with investments. Mr. Vasant Kumar said he will stay for 15 years. But when money started coming into the markets, he realized that this is a very different ball game. What Mr. Ramalingam said, that mutual funds, you can expect these kind of returns. I am seeing that this is not happening. I am facing the pressure. I am facing the situation now. It is my money. Let me come out of this. So this is the change in behavior that happens, similar to what the goalkeeper did. Who is going to lose at the end of all this? The investor will lose them. So behavior again becomes very, very critical, very, very important. Many of us as investors come with the thought process that I will come for 15, 20 years. And therefore, I again repeat, investing in equity mutual fund is very simple. Staying in equity mutual fund is very difficult. And if you can do that, believe me, okay, you can do that. Believe me, you will be able to create wealth in the long term.